Hi everyone, welcome back. This is PNMI 101 Part 2. My name is Melissa Testa and I'm one of the PNMI consultants. I'm here with our team today.
Hi everyone, I'm Meeta Patel, also a PNMI consultant.
Hi folks, Katie Churchill here.
Today for Part 2, we're going to be talking about standards 25 through 35, service delivery and progress documentation. So standard 25 talks about clinical and milieu services. And so what we're looking for is that every day, for every service that you prescribe in your treatment plan, there has to be a service note indicating the frequency and duration that is prescribed. So say you prescribed individual therapy once a week for 60 minutes. We're going to look to see, did you provide individual therapy weekly? If for some reason a youth is not available, AWOL, refusals, home pass, and a service doesn't occur, we still want to see a progress note indicating why a service didn't occur. So within a month, if you prescribe individual therapy once a week, we should see 4 notes. And if the youth participated in 3 services, there still should be 4 notes, 3 indicating a service occurred and 1 indicating that one did not occur. So for standard 25 in our final report, you're going to see this compliance report here. Also included in here is standard 31, but you don't see that here because it's its own section. So we have in this first column, the services that you prescribe. The second column is the frequency that the service actually met as prescribed. And this fourth column is how often did you actually provide the service. This column here only applies to family therapy. So as you can see in individual therapy here, you're at 100%. Group therapy is at 50%. And what that means is suppose that you prescribed individual therapy once a week, but you only, so in a month, we should see 4 services. But 1 week you provided it twice a week. 1 week you didn't provide it at all. The next week you provided it twice a week, and the next week you didn't provide it at all. That means you still provided 4 services, which is why your fourth column here is 100%, but it wasn't as prescribed as weekly, which is why this is at 50%, and only 2 out of the 4 weeks you actually provided it as prescribed. And so you want to make sure that you're really, when you document in your treatment plan, the frequency of services, that it's what you can meet. Family therapy down here, you can see, has 3 columns. And so you may prescribe family therapy once a month, and we're looking at a 90-day period. So we would want to see that there was 3 services that occurred. However, we know that things happen with families and that they don't always show up. Things happen in their personal reasons, but we don't want to hold you, penalize you for the family not being able to attend sessions. So if you are making your efforts and you are scheduling services as you're prescribing them and making efforts to reschedule them and provide those services, and you document those efforts, then you're still going to be compliant. So even though the service was compliant 66.7% of the time, you still met it 100% of the time because the documented efforts were there. And so overall for standard 25, we want to see that 75% of all the services provided were compliant. I mean, that you were compliant 75% of the time.
All right. So we are going to be looking at this green sheet. You may actually have seen it at your programs, and that's going to go through the 10 requirements that are required on all clinical, milieu, and outside progress notes. This is covered under standard 26 to 30. These 5 standards, again, apply to all milieu, clinical, and outside progress notes. Standard 26 is looking for the service type and the actual duration of the service to be written on the note. Standard 27 is looking for the date of the service, the date the service was given to be indicated on the note. Standard 28 is looking for the full printed name, signature, with date and agency title of the person who delivered the service and wrote the note. Standard 29 is looking for the goal and objective that was addressed during that service, whether it's a milieu or a clinical or an outside session. Standard 30 is looking for the progress made towards goals and objectives to be documented on that note. These 5 standards, some are all or nothing, and some are calculated based on percentage of compliance. What's important to remember here is that typically when we do reviews, we look at up to 90 days worth of notes, and if you miss one standard on one note, it could make the whole standard non-compliant and impact your overall review score. Something we have noticed is frequently that psychiatrist notes are missing one or more of these requirements on the note. Typically, they are not at the program all the time, and they're just not as familiar with, these requirements and maybe the template. So it's important to have a good QA process, not only for psychiatrist notes, but for all of these notes. These notes, whether it be clinical services that are provided by an outside provider, need to also be compliant with these 5 standards, and they should be HIPAA compliant. So we're going to be looking at clinical progress notes. We're going to wait just for a moment. There we go. Okay. Clinical progress notes. So it's important that the information that we're about to share with you is just guidance from us. It's important for you to refer back to your clinical supervisors, your agency protocols, any national programs such as the NASW or APA about what you actually document in your clinical progress note. Things that are helpful to us are the purpose of the session related to each goal and objective, documenting the youth's emotional state and participation in that session, a summary of the session including specific interventions that were used during the session, a statement of progress towards each goal and objective. We're looking for a grading or a rating word such as none, poor, moderate, excellent progress, a statement to support the rating, which includes documentation towards achieving the goal and objective utilizing measurability language. That helps support that overall progress rating. The sample packet that we referred to in part 1 of the training, we are going to refer back to that and look at page 6. Which has some examples of clinical progress notes. I'm going to read a few. No progress. Johnny has made no progress as he refused to engage in the session and discuss his inappropriate boundaries with staff. You may have this happen, and again, it's no indication on your program's ability to engage the youth. It's important to document progress during that session. This may happen often or not at all at your program. Moderate progress. Johnny made moderate progress. He described some of his emotions that he was experiencing, but had difficulty connecting how his actions affected multiple domains of his life. And here's a good one. Good progress. Johnny made excellent progress as he verbalized his coping skills and when to use them in the future. We all strive for that one.
Okay, so I'm going to be covering Standard 31, and I do just want to highlight that this really speaks about daily milieu progress notes, and we have a whole separate training that really goes into detail about this, and so we certainly would recommend that you participate in that. We have that online as well, and that would be a great way to get some additional detail about it. It doesn't just apply to Milieu staff. Clinicians, program directors, people who are doing QA on notes are great people to also participate in that and make sure they have a really good understanding of the Standard 31. So one of the things that is important to note about the daily Milieu proactive service that's provided is that we really want to make sure that your program supports the Milieu staff to help make sure that they're trained and that they really understand what's written in the treatment plan and what they're supposed to be doing with a youth, going back to that whole concept of this is a team process. We often hear from Milieu staff that they're confused on what they're supposed to deliver, that it's difficult when they don't have a clear direction on what the treatment plan is. So engaging everybody in that process really helps them to make sure that they do deliver that service really, really well. So that's important to really support them. So Standard 1 speaks to every single day there needs to be a progress note outlining a service that was delivered. That's the critical piece. If you go away with nothing else, go away with every day this needs to be provided. Melissa had already commented about that. When a service is not provided, you still need to make sure that you have a note. So if the youth refuses, whatever the case is, we talked about AWOLs or home visits. One thing I really would like to highlight as well is if a home visit is occurring on a Saturday and they're going home for 4 hours, there is still plenty of time during that day to deliver a service. So you want to make sure that you do your best to offer that service. A client refuses, you also want to do your best to try and re-engage them and make sure that you continue to try and provide that service. If a youth is AWOL for multiple days, you need to still make sure that a progress note is written each day so that you capture that each day and not like write one note for an AWOL period lasting for a week. Every day there needs to be a note.
So next we're going to talk about MTPPRs, everyone's favorite. So standards 32 through 35 are all MTPPR standards. And so in your sample packet, pages 8, 9, and 10 is the next couple pages that we're going to look at. So standard 32 indicates, are all the MTPPRs in the record? And so with electronic records these days, it doesn't have to be physically in the record. As long as you can access them and show them to us, we want to make sure that you have them wherever you have them, we can see them. And so we want to make sure that all the MTPPRs for the youth since admission through the review are present in your record. Standard 33 is we're going to look at within the MTPPR, individual therapy, group therapy, and family therapy sessions. Those provided by you during the period under review match the number of sessions actually reported in the MTPPR. And so we're going to look in your record and we're going to see during, we'll say during January, you had reported in your MTPPR 4 services occurred. So we're going to look back in your record, were there 4 notes in your record that indicated that 4 services occurred. Now remember, this isn't the number of sessions scheduled, it's the number of sessions held. And so I try to think about it in the terms of like insurance, right? You can only bill insurance on a service that occurred. So you can only report to Beacon Health a service that occurred. So if you have a session where youth refused to come in, or a session scheduled, but then you were out unexpectedly and it didn't occur, you don't report on those. You only report the number of sessions actually held with the youth or the family. So we'll match all of those up. Standard 34, what we're going to look at is the symptomatology section and recovery and resiliency sections only. So those are the two sections that have been approved by Beacon Health to capture the information we're looking for in the MTPPR. And what information we're looking there is every goal, every objective has to be present that's on the treatment plan during that time. And so if you have a goal or an objective that discontinues and you add new ones on, you still have to report out on those in your MTPPR, a progress statement. And so if you have goal 1, objective 1, or goal, and that one discontinues, you still have to write a progress statement for that and then add the next one, goal 1, objective 2, and then if you added a new one. And you can say new objective added, but then it's still there because it's on your treatment plan. And so we're going to match your treatment plan with your MTPPR to make sure every goal and objective is on your MTPPR and there's a progress statement for each one of those. Now, they are character limited. So I'll show you in another slide how you guys can capture that in an abbreviated version. Standard 35 talks about, are all MTPPRs sent to the area office? Now, with our new electronic systems, they are automatically sent. So if you have completed your MTPPRs and they are in your record, we assume that they've been automatically sent to the area office because they can access them in the Beacon Health system. So we want to make sure that if they're there, then the area office has access to them. So this is a link to the Beacon Health website that shows you this provider alert memo. So if you read in your MTPR sections, symptomatology and recovery and resiliency, they're going to give you the wrong instructions on what to put in those sections. This memo indicates that you should not follow the directions in the MTPPR and that you should document goals, objectives, and progress in those two sections. So if you're a new clinician and you just follow what's written in the MTPPR, you're gonna miss this standard. And so this is the memo that indicates that you are allowed to not follow those directions and just document goals, objectives, and progress statements. Here's an example of an MTPR progress statement. And so as you can see here, we use G1, G101 within this example. So as long as we can link, if you within your treatment plan, you label your goal, goal 1, G1, and your objectives, G101, we can link what's in your MTPPR to the treatment plan so that you don't have to write out all your goals and objectives to save some room on characters. But you have to make sure that you have these labels. So if it's problem 1, goal 1, objective 1, and then your next one is problem 2, goal 1, objective 1, you're going to have to add a P1 and a P2. Otherwise, you're going to end up with 2 G1s, O1s, right? And then we don't know what they link to. So you have to remember that whatever's in your treatment plan as your labels, if you have them, you can link them to your MTPPR. However, if you don't have that ability to do that in your system, you will have to write them out. But you do get 2 sections to fill out all your progress statements. And again, here's our MTPPR tracking tool so that you can plug in for one youth and it'll give you all the dates for the MTPPR that are due from date of admission. Again, make sure your date of admission is accurate and it's correct, because if you have the wrong admission date, every single one of your MTPPR dates will be inaccurate. So you want to make sure that your admission date is correct. And I know that there's been some glitches in the system in the past. So moving forward, if the Beacon Health system gives you different dates, and then the MTPPR tracking tool, go by the MTPPR tracking tool. We've been told that that is the formula that should be accurate at all times. Okay, we're going to move into PNMI quality assurance. So
The programs that continuously pass with high record review scores are programs that have a good quality assurance process in place. So we continuously see that with those programs. For the programs that don't have a good process in place, or if there's been change in administrative staff, it's important to consider putting together a good quality assurance process at your program. Some of our programs utilize IT to develop tickler systems for due dates to make sure that everything for every record is approved timely. So you need a tickler system to keep up with that. Some programs use third shift staff to review Milieu notes, and often they're just using the Milieu staff to make sure, going back to our green sheet, that the 10 requirements are on all notes. Additionally, there could be QA staff or supervisors that review the Milieu notes to make sure all of the requirements are on all of the notes. So for those programs that do not have a passing score of 74.5 or higher, we will come out and do a quarterly review, also known as a midterm. During that review, we will not look at treatment plans. However, we will look at a full record to review overall compliance with all 35 standards for one particular use. And if you pass with a 74.5 or higher on that review, you will return back to the claiming pool of providers. A tool that we shared with our programs is called the PNMI Quality Assurance Assessment Tool. This is a tool that we developed using all 35 standards, which allows clinicians, program administrators, QA staff to review each record for a use for overall compliance with all 35 standards. And this can be emailed to your program. You may already have it, and or it is available online.
All right, folks, that wraps up the end of part 2. We thank you for joining us today. Please feel free to contact us with any questions. If you haven't yet done part 1, don't worry about that. Please just hop on and do that. It doesn't matter what order it is in. All 35 standards are covered, so you want to just make sure you get that in as well. You'll see here on the slide that we have our website. All of our resources are on the website, so the tools and the things that you need you can find right there. Again, reach out to us with any questions. We're happy to support you. We're happy to partner with you. This unfortunately doesn't lead to a question and answer at the end, but we can do that personally with you. And that oftentimes is a great time to really talk about how the standards impact your work specifically. We can talk about your individual treatment plans that you use, the progress notes that you use, and we can just make sure that we're really addressing your needs as well. So again, thank you and have a great day.